Good morning, football fans, and welcome to episode 154 of Morning Kickoff. I am your host, Matt Whit, and today we are live on youtube.com/Matt Whit. I am the Morning Kickoff YouTube channel. You can come check us out every Monday and Thursday morning around 9 o'clock Central. We have a lot to talk about today, and we are live on the Morning Kickoff YouTube channel. Make sure to check us out, or else you can listen to all the pre-recorded podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. Today, we have a very fun episode. A lot of news for the Minnesota Vikings. Wow. After an amazing conference weekend of football. The Super Bowl is set. That Super Bowl will be the Rams going back to their Super Bowl for the first time in 3 years, have redemption against losing to Tom Brady a few years ago, but this year they won't have to deal with Tom Brady as they're going to go up against the GOAT, the amazing Joe Burrow. I love to watch this. This is a great Super Bowl. Love to see it happen. We have the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, we're going Bengals. Everybody outside of LA or outside of St. Louis are probably going to go with the Bengals in this matchup. As you can see on the mug right over here, this is a mug. You can check it out on our merch store. It is Next Year Will Be Our Year Club. This is all of the colorways of the teams that have yet to win a Super Bowl. And you can see on this list, there is the Bengals right here. So I guess it could be limited edition if the Bengals win the Super Bowl. We're going to have to update it. We'll have to see. The Bengals are looking to win their first Super Bowl in LA against LA. It's going to be a great Super Bowl to watch, and we have 2 weeks until then. However, in next week, we have the Pro Bowl. Now, I know there's mixed emotions on Pro Bowl. A lot of people don't like the Pro Bowl. A lot of people love the Pro Bowl. There's mixed emotions, but at the end of the day, our quarterback is going to the Pro Bowl. He's going over Aaron Rodgers after Aaron Rodgers is dealing with his injury once again. Aaron Rodgers continues to complain about his little toe. I haven't looked into what injury it is, but I'm 99% sure he's complaining about his toe again. That's the same toe that he wanted to show the media, and yet nobody could see what was wrong with his toe. Great to see Kirk Cousins is going to the Pro Bowl this year. He's also going alongside Brian O'Neill, which feels so good. Brian O'Neill last week was also elevated to the Pro Bowl after Tristan Wirfs' injury. 2 injuries on the Buccaneers offense, and now we step in on top of that. We would have saw CJ Ham go if the 49ers made the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, the 49ers did not make the Super Bowl. I was cheering for them. Unfortunately, they didn't. But for that, Kyle Juszczyk is going to the Pro Bowl instead of CJ Ham, even though CJ Ham deserves it more. Outside of that, obviously, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, Harrison Smith, the 3 players who were voted into the Pro Bowl. On top of that, more news for the Minnesota Vikings. Now that the 49ers lost, we can bring in DeMeco Ryans as our next head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. They have brought down their head coaching search to just 4 candidates. Obviously, we have Jim Harbaugh, who we've looked at already. On top of that, DeMeco Ryans, Kevin O'Connell, Raheem Morris. They have narrowed it down to just 4 candidates, and we'll talk about this all on today's episode of Morning Kickoff. I hope you all enjoy. Do you enjoy listening to this podcast? If you don't, that's totally fine. But if you do and would like to help out, there will be a link in the description that will bring you to my merch store. At this store, we sell t-shirts, sweatshirts, and mugs, and all of the profit earned will go towards the production of this podcast. Thank you all, and enjoy the show. Thank you, man. Great comment. Love that. Love to hear it. Sorry, in 3, 2, 1. The Minnesota Vikings had narrowed their list down to just 4. First of all, I already said it, but shout out to Kirk Cousins, much deserved, going to the Pro Bowl over Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers likely, hopefully, out of the NFC North, and now Kirk Cousins, if he plays for the Vikings next year, should finally win the division. The first time ever winning the NFC North, because Aaron Rodgers will leave and will be the weakest division in football if he returns to the Vikings next year. Likely won't return. I've talked about it already. I've talked about it a lot, how the Vikings on the Kirk Cousins trade, the scenario that we're in right now. I've talked about it a lot, so I'm going to put that aside. Right now, we're going to take a look at the Vikings head coaching search. So yes, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is now in and will be making his very first decision for the Minnesota Vikings. We brought him in to say, we need to bring in a GM to help us with the head coaching search, because we can't just leave it all in the hands of the Will family, obviously. We need to bring in a GM who knows what head coach would be a best fit for the team. So we bring in Kwesi to be our GM. So far, it's looking like a great signing. However, he hasn't made any moves yet. So we really can't jump right into it saying he's going to be a great GM, because we have no clue at all what he's going to do for this team. We understand what his plan is. His plan is to obviously bring us a Super Bowl. His plan is to make the salary cap room, distribute the money a lot more. We know what his plan is. We have to realize the steps into getting there. And I'm really questioning what he's going to do. But now his first job is obviously bringing in a head coach, and he's narrowed it down to just 4 candidates. The Minnesota Vikings are set to interview DeMeco Ryans, defensive coordinator for the 49ers. Once again, they did already interview him. However, that was before we did hire our GM. So now they're doing a second interview process with DeMeco Ryans, Kevin O'Connell, offensive coordinator for the Rams, and Raheem Morris, defensive coordinator for the Rams. So 3 coaches who just played yesterday in the NFC Championship game. That was DeMeco Ryans, Kevin O'Connell, and Raheem Morris. Kevin O'Connell and Raheem Morris will be coaching in the Super Bowl. That meaning the Minnesota Vikings will not be allowed to hire them for their head coach until obviously after the Super Bowl, of course, because they're still under contract with their current team. However, the Minnesota Vikings can interview them right now. So lot to look for this. This is great. And then obviously you have Jim Harbaugh on top of that. I mean, we've already talked about this. What do all 4 of these candidates have in common? Harbaugh, Ryans, O'Connell, Morris. What do they all have in common? They have a direct correlation with Kwesi, our GM right now. A direct correlation, and they've coached together before. So what this means is Adolfo Mensa is looking at these coaches as good coaches. He's looking at people who we know he can already work with. Love it. Hands down, big fan of that. Thank you. Not a big fan of signing Jim Harbaugh. Going to be completely honest, it's a very safe, passive move. I understand there's not much risk there, and risk can a lot of the times be bad. Risk is exactly what the Vikings need right now. Bringing in Jim Harbaugh, DeMeco Ryans, or not the biggest risk. I'm looking more at Kevin O'Connell, Raheem Morris here. I'm looking at specifically Kevin O'Connell here. So the Minnesota Vikings have narrowed it down to just 4 candidates. And there's mixed emotions amongst Vikings fans. I did run a poll on my YouTube channel. A majority of people think it's going to be Jim Harbaugh. I believe it was over 40% say that. I don't see it. I don't. I think by the end, after the Super Bowl, Kevin O'Connell or Raheem Morris will be our head coach. I really don't think it's going to be Jim Harbaugh. I believe if it was Harbaugh, he'd be our head coach already. We've already interviewed him twice. And yet we're still looking for new candidates. He is on the list still, and I don't think it's going to be Harbaugh, going to be completely honest. And I'm fine with that. Harbaugh is obviously going to work. He is going to look okay as a head coach if he does get another head coaching gig somewhere. How many years? He spent 5 years as the head coach, or how many years have Harbaugh been a head coach? With Michigan, he was with Michigan, obviously. Then he was with 49ers before that. And then he was with like baseball or something before that. So he has a long track record of head coaching around sports. So yes, we know it's going to work if we bring in Harbaugh. We know we will likely win our division next year if we bring in Harbaugh. However, we are looking for something else. And I've talked about it multiple times. It is so crucial to have a head coach who can have a great relationship with your quarterback. This is what the Vikings have been without the last, I want to say 10 years. It felt like since the last time the Vikings have had a good relationship, a good head coach to quarterback relationship, which is very crucial. And we knew the last few years that's exactly what continued to hold the Vikings back. That Zimmer relationship with Kirk. Zimmer was holding Kirk back. Kirk was holding Zimmer back. I believe at this point that is almost blatantly obvious out there that is very crucial to have on your team. And that's exactly what the Minnesota Vikings need. So who could make the great relationship with whoever as a future quarterback is? Now, Kirk Cousins might be the quarterback next year and might be the quarterback the few years after that. To be honest, right now, we have absolutely no clue who our quarterback is going to be next year because we don't know what our GM's plans are. Now, if Rick Spielman was still our GM, I would assume Kirk would continue to be our quarterback. However, we have no clue because for all we know, DeMeco Ryans and Jimmy Garoppolo from the 49ers could be our head coach and quarterback next year. For all we know, we really have no clue who's going to be our quarterback next year and beyond. But what we do know is that we want what we haven't had in a long time, and that's a head coach to quarterback relationship. So it's good to know. It's good to know Kwesi already will have a good relationship with whoever is going to be our next head coach, whether that is Raheem Morris, Kevin O'Connell, DeMeco Ryans, or Jim Harbaugh, all 4 of which have worked with Kwesi in the past, and it would be great to see them come in. I've talked about it many times. Kevin O'Connell is on my number 1 list, but to be honest, I'm just a guy talking on podcasting, just a guy talking on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So take my opinion with a grain of salt. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm putting all my trust in Kwesi. Like, even if it's Harbaugh, I believe in his decision. Now, yes, he hasn't made any moves for our team so far, but whatever decision he makes, I'll give that head coach a chance. Just going to put that out there. If I were to list these, Kevin O'Connell's 1, Raheem Morris is 2, DeMeco Ryans is 3, Jim Harbaugh is 4. That's my list. Whatever one he goes with, I'm totally fine with. I'll give him a chance because I do trust Quase's decision from how he's looked so far. Now, yes, he hasn't made any move, and I know that, and obviously you have to see it with time how GMs are going to look. After that press conference, I'm pretty confident. I believe a lot of Vikings fans, from what I've seen, are also very confident in what he's able to do, and so are Cleveland fans, so are 49ers fans. So I'm all in on it, all in on whatever decision they make. Really want it to be Kevin O'Connell. I'll take whatever head coach that he brings in because I hope that he knows how to work with the head coach and how to bring in a new quarterback. If it is Kevin O'Connell, there's a no-brainer that we will have a good head coach to quarterback relationship because he was a quarterback in the past. Kevin O'Connell spent 2 years, these last 2 seasons, with the Rams offensive coordinator, 5 previous years with Washington, 49ers, and Cleveland. So obviously has a good relationship with Kwesi through there, and was also a former quarterback with the Patriots back in like 2008. O'Connell was. Yeah, I don't think he was a great quarterback. I looked into his stats. I mean, I didn't know who he was before. I didn't even know he was a quarterback till like last week. I looked it up, but he was also quarterback back in 2008. From the stats, did not look very good, but he was with the Patriots, so therefore has a good track record with coaching. Obviously, they have one of the best coaching staff in the NFL, hence why they're the biggest dynasty ever in the NFL to ever exist. Maybe even all of sports for that matter. But on top of that, happy with the Final Four decisions. And let me know what y'all think. I really don't think it's going to be Harbaugh. Now, 24 hours ago, I feel like a majority of us figured it was going to be Harbaugh. They did already interview him twice. But that's the thing. They've interviewed him twice, and yet we're still looking for a head coach. Are we very confident in Harbaugh? Because I'm not. I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely not. I know he'll be a solid head coach, but I'm looking for a great head coach here. And Kevin O'Connell, that's a risky move, but I'm all in for the risk. Same goes for, that DeMeco Ryans as well. DeMeco Ryans, yes, that's the same DeMeco Ryans who just retired from the NFL like 6 years ago. I believe he was with Houston, and then he was with some other team after that. Houston and, who was he with? Philadelphia, yeah, 2-time Pro Bowler, played 10 years in the NFL. Yeah, that's the same DeMeco Ryans. So if you notice that name, not as a defensive coordinator, but if you recognize that name like I did, yeah, he retired back in like 2015. So same DeMeco Ryans who played linebacker for 10 years in the NFL. So yeah, that's another person who very good candidate who can work with our defense, and our defense needs help. Our defense needs help. I understand Andre Patterson. Credit to Andre Patterson. Love the guy. He needs some help as well. Andre Patterson is great at developing and drafting defensive linemen, but we need someone else who can work with him like DeMeco Ryans. Let me know what y'all think. Somehow hire Bill? Which Bill are you talking about? Bill O'Brien? Obviously not Bill Belichick. Bill O'Brien? Bill O'Brien would be a terrible candidate. Blazing Woods asks, if Everson Griffin retires, I want to see DJ and Hunter on the D-line. So, me too. I would love to see it happen. But here's the thing. Does Danielle Hunter want to play here? Does Danielle Hunter really want to play here? Because if you remember, back in 2016 was he drafted? I believe it. Yeah, he drafted by Mike Zimmer. He was having so much fun on this defense. We were an excellent defense, and Danielle Hunter was racking up, 14 and a half sacks in 2 back-to-back seasons. I mean, he looked like he was having so much fun alongside Everson Griffin. Now, the last 2 years has just suffered with injuries, and is hence why he's hinting at a trade here. So I don't know if Danielle Hunter wants to return with the Vikings, and I don't know if the Vikings should want to bring him back because with his injury concerns, and we're in salary cap hell. So DJ Wonnum will undoubtedly be a starter with the Vikings next year at defensive end. It's just a question on who's going to be alongside DJ Wonnum, whether that will be Danielle Hunter or maybe, throw this name out there, Kenny Willekes. Okay, Willekes, 7th round draft pick in 2020, looked amazing this last year, spent the first season on the practice squad, and this year outperformed Patrick Jones, rookie. Janarius Robinson didn't play, but outperformed a lot of other names out there for this Vikings defensive line, and I love to see it. I love to see it so much. Kenny Willekes, definitely a fan of him as well. Joey Pesek, we won't know whether or not Kwesi is a good GM until about 2 years from now. I don't believe it'll be quite 2 years. The thing is, these next few seasons, or these next 2 to 3 months for the Vikings, might be the most interesting Vikings 2-month stretch in history. Because seriously, we have no clue what to expect here. We brought in a new GM. We started off by firing Rick Spielman and firing Mike Zimmer. So we already knew there was going to be a lot of moves made this offseason. We bring in Kwesi. Now we're going to bring in a head coach that likely worked with him. We will bring in a head coach that worked with him. He already narrowed it down to his top 4 candidates. One of these head coaches will have already a direct relationship with Kwesi. And to be honest, we have no idea what to expect. We have no clue. And this offseason, it's going to be really interesting to watch unfold because, yes, right now we're looking for a head coach. And we've been looking for a head coach for what? A month since the NFL season was officially done. The regular season was officially done. We've been looking for a head coach for like a month now, and I believe it's only us and the Jaguars left in the head coaching search, and we're going to finally bring in our head coach. After that, these guys have to work to how they're going to deal with the salary cap hell, because we are negative $12 million in salary cap, and yet we have so many potential moves the Vikings can make to deal with this. Obviously, Kirk Cousins trade is one we've been talking about the most, but there's a lot of different moves the Vikings can make to deal with this. And then on top of that, we have so many holes on this team. Now, yes, I know Vikings can compete next year. When I say we have so many holes on this team, I'm not saying we're a terrible team. We can definitely compete next year and win our division. But we have so many holes to where, how are the Vikings going to deal with this? Are they going to try to fill all these holes in free agency, go more in the pit, or are they going to wait till the draft and look to possibly trading up to find some of these players and likely overdrafting on players if you're just going for position instead of value in the draft? So obviously over the draft coming up, not only that, but look at the Packers. Okay, there is so much to talk about, and you guys, tune into this show because we are going to continue to unfold all of the moves that are going to be made, because this next 2 months might be the most interesting 2 months in Vikings history. After we just bring in a GM, we have no clue what he's going to do. We don't. Yes, he looks promising. His press conference knocked it out of the ballpark. But we have no clue. There's been many head coaches who looked amazing in their press conference and just fell flat. Head coaches and GMs. Looking at you, Urban Meyer. Looking at you, just about every head coach in Browns history outside of Kevin Stefanski. But you look at it, we really have no clue. We don't know what to expect. We know what his goal is. We don't know what his steps to reach his goal is. And that's what we're looking at. And that's what we're going to find out these upcoming few seasons. Because if Spielman was our GM still, if Mike Zimmer was still our head coach, we would see a Kirk Cousins extension. All right, we would. We would see a Kirk Cousins extension. We'd likely see even an Alexander Madison extension, just continue to be that ground and the pound, hands in the dirt football team. We really don't know what to expect. We have no clue what to expect. And that's why it's going to be very interesting to watch it unfold. Like I said, then you got the Packers, okay? The Packers are also going through some stuff right now. Then you got the Bears over here. The Bears are also completely changed. They got their new GM, got their new head coach. They already know that you're supposed to do that pretty soon, so then you can focus on the draft and free agency. We still are looking for a head coach. You got multiple names that they're bringing into their team as well. But the most interesting one is definitely the Packers right now, we might see Aaron Rodgers finally out of the division. We might see Devontae Adams out of the division. Devondre Campbell. I can finally feel happy when Devondre Campbell looks good. So good to see. Robert Tonyan. Okay, Kevin King. There's multiple names on that Packers team that are likely going to leave, and they got the St. Brown guy, whatever his first name, however you pronounce it, the brother of Amon-Ra St. Brown, is also set to hit free agency. Multiple big-time names. Randall Cobb is one more year left in his contract. He's a potential out this year. I mean, Packers are also going through a massive change right now. So these next 2 to 3 months, you guys, is going to be so interesting. And then you got the draft. We have no clue what the Vikings are going to do in the draft right now. No clue. Are we going to go quarterback? I don't know. Are we going to sit at 12, wait for a corner? Seems like a good solution. Are we going to trade up and try to get one of the top edge rushers in the draft? No clue at all. Why? Because we are finally going through a rebuild. I know it's not a complete rebuild for the team because, yes, we can compete next year. However, we are going through a rebuild. When you fire your GM, fire your head coach, you are going through a rebuild. So it's going to be super fascinating to watch going forward, and I'm all in for it. I'm all in for it. Blazing Wood says, yes, Kenny and DJ would be nice. Kenny Willekes? See, here's the thing. DJ Wanham locked down the role. He's going to be a starter next year. Alongside him, Just have everybody play for the role. Because here's the thing with, even if we lose Danielle Hunter, I still know our defensive line is going to be solid. Whoever it is. Why? Because Andre Patterson is amazing at developing defensive linemen. So whether that's Kenny Willekes, Patrick Jones, Janarius Robinson, what's another name? There's been some more players that we saw. Maybe even Sheldon Richardson comes back. Who really knows? But whoever starts alongside DJ Wanham, I'm all in for it. I would like it to be Danielle Hunter, but we need a backup plan. Okay, we need a plan for Danielle Hunter to not play a single game next year. Whether we trade him or whether he gets injured, we have to plan for him to not play a game next year and look to signing someone else. He also says Kevin O'Connell, all in for Kevin O'Connell. I see a lot of Kevin O'Connells, huge on Kevin O'Connell, would love to see him. A thing with him, also on top of that, I just mentioned how I believe, I'm going to have to fact check this after I go live, or maybe one of you know, are the Vikings and Jaguars the only two teams left to sign a head coach? Because I thought the Jaguars were going to bring in Byron Leftwich as their head coach, but they have yet to do so. So he wouldn't have to travel very far. He's already in Florida. But I believe it's only Vikings and Jaguars yet to find a head coach, and it's just us for them. It's us and them trying to get Kevin O'Connell here. Vikings can obviously bring in someone else as well. I just don't think it's going to be Harbaugh. I really don't. A majority of Vikings fans, according to my poll, say that Harbaugh will likely be the next head coach for the Vikings. I don't think so, because I feel like if it was going to be Harbaugh, it would have been already. But then again, what do I know? At the end of the day, we really have no idea what Kwesi's plans are and what his steps are doing this. But they are, by the end of today, Vikings fans, by the end of today, we might have a new head coach. And I have my phone. If you're wondering why I keep looking at my phone, I'm trying to see Adam Schefter, or not Adam Schefter anymore. That guy's no longer reliable after saying Tom Brady's going to retire. I'm looking for Tom Pelissero. Okay, I'm looking for someone else to do some breaking news. Maybe even Courtney Cronin to break the news that Vikings have a new head coach. But as of right now, they're still going through the interviewing process, so I doubt it would happen quite yet. As we speak, though, it's 9:22 a.m. As we speak, I believe the Vikings are interviewing one of the names that we talked about, D'Amico Ryans, Kevin O'Connell, or Raheem Morris as of right now. Although it's too early. Maybe they're interviewing later. Blazing Woods 420. Just realized what your name is. Okay, what do you think of this? If Hunter leaves, maybe try and trade for Max Crosby. After the season Max Crosby has, no. It's just too risky. You're going to have to give up so much to bring in Max Crosby because he had an excellent season. 1 year ago today, absolutely. Okay, I have no proof of me calling this on the podcast because I never said it on this show, but I've said it multiple times. Maybe I have text proof. I said Max Crosby is one of the most underrated defensive ends in the NFL right now. And I said that 1 year ago to this day. Now he just had the season that he had, and unfortunately, I would not trade for him now, especially because his trade value upped a lot. 1 year ago today, I would have been all in for that because I was saying how underrated he was, yet people didn't realize. Because him coming out of, what was it, like 6th round draft pick, stepping in at defensive end by the second half of last year. Just a monster, just an absolute beast on that defense. Okay, Joey Pasek says, I think I said your last name wrong. Right, sorry if I said it wrong. Get rid of Pierce and go after Akiem Hicks in free agency. Not a fan. Okay, getting rid of Michael Pierce, I like it. I like the idea. I'm a huge fan of getting rid of Michael Pierce, but here's the facts. Akiem Hicks, you really want to go more into the salary cap hell right now that we're already in? Because Michael Pierce was injured the last 2 years. Now, I get, technically he wasn't injured in 2020 because he opted out of the season, but the last 2 years, we barely saw him play. And from the time that we saw him play, he looked all right. But you know who looked better than just all right? Armond Watts. Armond Watts last year was maybe the most underrated Viking of this last season. Every time Armond Watts stepped on the field, he was a beast. That man did nothing wrong. And I can pull up his PFF grade right now because that man was unstoppable on our defense. And I would be totally fine with him being a starter in 2022 for the Vikings because he's still in his rookie contract, very cheap, a lot cheaper than Michael Pierce. I like the idea of getting rid of Michael Pierce. Don't like the idea of bringing in Akiem Hicks. Armond Watts' PFF grade was only 62. If he had 5 sacks though, holy crap. Oh my gosh, he didn't play him that much of the season. I didn't realize he had 5 sacks last year. He also had a forced fumble as well. An absolute beast. Great against the run, and he can rush the passer from the inside as well. That's what we like to see. So, not a fan of bringing in Akiem Hicks. Am a fan of getting rid of Michael Pierce, either trading him away or cutting him. All right, Dizzy says, the rebuild can still be competitive. Trading Thielen? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Kirk, Harrison Smith, or Michael Nwonwu. Michael Nwonwu? Are you talking about the tackle for the Patriots? There's no way they're going to trade him away on his rookie contract. Who is a right guard, tackle, and a backup for the Pats, and will worth the picks and let young players eat. Here's the thing about the Vikings. Michael Nwonwu does not want to play for our team. I'm going to be completely blatantly honest. He does not want to play for a team like us because he's going to look so much better on the Patriots. Why? Because they're so great at developing offensive linemen. And we'll have to give up a lot for him. I just don't see the case where he would actually want to play with our Vikings team because we make offensive linemen look terrible. You guys remember how bad we are at developing offensive linemen? I mean, the only good draft pick at offensive line out of the last decade that I can think of for the Vikings was Brian O'Neill. Everybody else ended up being a bust. You look at our day 1, day 2 draft picks for the Vikings in the last decade. Now, obviously, we don't know with Christian Darrisaw right now. We're counting him out of the picture. Let me just name a few names for you. Garrett Bradbury, Pat Elflein. Let's find some more names. Okay, Ezra Cleveland's kind of working out now. If we look at some more second, third round. Oh, what about dude drafted 4th overall? What was his name? Matt Khalil. All right, there's multiple names out there for offensive linemen that just fall flat. There's no way Michael Nwonwu is going to look better with us than he does with the Patriots. I didn't know he wasn't a starter though, because I know they have Shaq Mason, obviously stud tackle, one of the best in the league. But Nwonwu, I think is how you say his name. He is a backup. Yep, he's a backup guard for them and backup right tackle behind Trent Brown. Okay, so their offensive line is unstoppable. Maybe the Patriots would be willing to trade him away. But I do like the idea of trading away Thielen, Kirk, and Harrison Smith. They're all over 30 years old. Now, yes, they're all over 30 years old, but none of them has showed any sign of decline. That's why you trade them away. Because Harrison Smith is still a top 7 safety in the league. Kirk Cousins is still a top 16 quarterback in the league. Thielen is the best wide receiver over the age of 30. They all still have trade value, and I'm all in for trading all of those players. I also like how one of you mentioned, what was his name? Michael Pierce as well, because that's another name we have to talk about for trading away, because you really have to trade these players away. Good morning, Julian. Blazing Wood says, hate me for saying this, but Unique Ngakoue should come back. He's not coming back. You guys remember Unique Ngakoue on this team. He does not want to play here, especially when we're going through what we're going through right now. There's no chance he wants to play for our team. Well, maybe I don't know what was the problem with Unique though. Why did he not like playing here? Was it because he had 4 sacks in like the first 3 games or something like that he played with our team? Like he was looking great and he was giving 100% of snaps on defense. I don't know why he wouldn't want to play with our team, especially if he could be playing alongside Danielle Hunter. I mean, he should. I don't know what was happening with him, because it's very rare you see defensive linemen who don't like playing here. Very rare. You almost never see that. As a matter of fact, you see the opposite, where defensive linemen take salary cuts to play with us. That's what Sheldon Richardson, Dalvin Tomlinson both did the last offseason, and Everson Griffin all took a big, massive, on veteran minimum salary cut to come play with our team, because Andre Patterson and Mike Zimmer are great defensive minds. Now, we don't have Zimmer obviously anymore. However, we still have Andre Patterson in charge of our defense, and he is amazing with defensive linemen. Great at defensive linemen. Who did they traded away? No, I didn't. I didn't know they traded him away. Are you talking about Unique Ngakoue? Yeah, they traded Unique Ngakoue last year, if that's what you're talking about. But we will talk about what will happen with Danielle Hunter. But yeah, we can talk about this, because obviously Kwesi's first decision is bringing in a head coach. That's why the Will family brought him in. They said he's going to help with the head coaching hiring. And that's why they already did a second interview with Jim Harbaugh. They're going to do a second interview now with D'Amico Ryans, Kevin O'Connell, and Raheem Morris as of today. By the time this episode, like the pre-recorded episode, goes live, we might have a new head coach. As of right now on the live stream, we are still without a head coach, and we might have a new head coach within the next, maybe by the end of today. That could honestly happen. It would have to be either Harbaugh or D'Amico Ryans, though. But some salary cap cuts for the Minnesota Vikings, because after we do hire a head coach, we have to immediately make moves. And when I say that, I'm talking about these massive overpaid contracts that we have on this Vikings team, because the Vikings are $13 million over the salary cap, which is one of the worst in the NFL right now. Not only are we $13 million above the salary cap, but a lot of our salary cap is going to the same few players, which is why today we're going to take a look at salary cap cuts for the Minnesota Vikings. So, first of all, before we do this, I want to talk about restructuring contracts because there should be no contracts for this Minnesota Vikings offense that should be restructured. It is a very rare case that I like when teams restructure contracts. Because all you're doing when you restructure a contract is kicking the can down a couple years. You're just screwing yourselves over in the future. And that's what the 2019-2020 Vikings team did to us now. Because now we have Harrison Smith, Adam Thielen, and Kirk Cousins all on massively overpaid contracts. Why? Because they took salary cuts a couple years ago. Salary cuts are not salary cuts when all you're doing is getting your money later in guaranteed salary. So we're not going to restructure. We should not restructure any contracts this offseason. And I would hate to see it happen. I am so tired of restructuring contracts. The only time it makes sense is when you are in a Super Bowl or bust year, which is where the Rams were this year. The Rams this season are in the Super Bowl. They were a Super Bowl or bust team. Sean McVay's job was on the line if they didn't make it to the Super Bowl, which is why out of everyone on that team, he's probably most happy to make it, even more than Stafford, to finally be on a winning team. But you have to take a look at this. How do I think the Vikings should handle their $13 million over the salary? By making big-time blockbuster trades or by cutting players away. Because in all honesty, Vikings might not be in a complete rebuild. But what we are is entering a new era for this team. This is the dawn of a new era. Whoever our next head coach is going to be, we have a new GM. We have to possibly look to a new quarterback. We have to look to new skilled position players because we have way too much money going to the same few players. And that's why, first of all, we're going to talk about Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith loved playing this Vikings team. I understand. He's the longest tenured Vikings. He's been with our team for 10 years now. Harrison Smith, with that being said, is due a lot of money upcoming. In 2022, if the Vikings do trade away Harrison Smith, which they can, Harrison Smith might be over 30 years old, but he remains a top 7 safety in the league. Hence why he's going to another Pro Bowl this year, because he is a top 7 safety in the league. If the Vikings do trade away Harrison Smith, he would be traded away and the Vikings would still have to pay him $7.7 million. That would be dead salary cap, and it would save him $5.8. So it wouldn't save us a whole lot of money, and then if you trade him after June 1st, it would better help our salary cap. So you don't have to trade Harrison Smith away. This is not a need, but this is an option that Kwesi has. This is an option that our front office has, is trading away Harrison Smith because he is over 30 years old. And if you're looking at us now, do you really think the Vikings are going to be a Super Bowl contender in 2022? Yes, we can win our division. I know that. Aaron Rodgers might leave Green Bay. Devontae Adams might be out of Green Bay, as well as a long list of other players who will likely be out of Green Bay. I understand the Vikings could win their division in 2022. I don't see any case that the Vikings can make it out of the 2022 NFC, get the NFC champions, and make it into the Super Bowl next year. I really don't think it's going to happen. And maybe this is the realism, Vikings fans, where I just don't want to be optimistic in just about any season. I was optimistic about this last season. I honestly believe that was our year because what did the Vikings do? They were a Super Bowl or bust team. It was a Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman final run with this Vikings team and why they restructured a bunch of contracts so they can go all in. A Super Bowl or bust year this was for the Vikings. Well, it was a bust year. After a bust year, you should go into a minor rebuild. This is not a complete rebuild, okay? You're going to keep a lot of your star players. We have a lot of young talent on our team. I understand that. But what we also have is a lot of valued old talent, like Harrison Smith, who's been with the team for 10 years, and the Vikings can definitely find value in trading him away. That would help us in the salary cap. We'd still be in the pit, but it would still be beneficial for our salary. Another player to mention, another player on top of Harrison Smith who sells a lot of jerseys and makes the Vikings a lot of money is Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen, loved player for this Vikings team. Obviously, if you're a Vikings fan, you love the guy. You really can't hate the guy. But what you can hate is paying him this much money. What you can hate is paying a wide receiver over the age of 30 this ridiculous amount of money. So if the Vikings do trade away Adam Thielen before June 1st, we would still have to pay him $11.1 million in 2022. It would only save us $5.8 million. However, if you trade Adam Thielen after June 1st, it would save us $12.6 million. 12.6. That would be very beneficial for the Vikings. Now, I've said it multiple times. Adam Thielen might be in his 30s, but he remains one of the most underrated wide receivers in football. He is the best receiver over the age of 30 right now. He has played in the league for how many years now? 8 years, 9 years, and has shown no sign of decline. So yes, he can come into 2022 and still look great. Might be for a different uniform though. Because if you're looking at Kwesi, typically what GMs do, they make big time changes to the team. This would be a massive change for the team. And we don't even need to bring in someone to be alongside him. KJ Osborne just had a breakout year. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is Justin Jefferson. On top of that, BC Johnson, Amir Smith-Marset, these are two players who have also shown promise in the last few seasons. And I'd be totally fine with either one of them taking that wide receiver 3 role, or else the Vikings can go receiver in the second round. There's a lot of depth in the receiver class this year where the Vikings can find value in their second round for another receiver to bring him in. Adam Thielen's a potential move that the Vikings could make, that Kwesi specifically could make, and that would be a big-time blockbuster move. A lot of Vikings fans would be not big fans of this. They would not be fans of the move because we love Adam Thielen. We love him a lot. What I love more than Adam Thielen is winning. All right? Gonna be completely honest. Adam Thielen is very helpful for our team. He's a star player on our offense. But what could also help us is trading away and possibly getting a second or third round draft pick for him. I'd be all in for that. Another player to talk about, another player who sells a lot of jerseys, Danielle Hunter. Okay, Vikings fans. Danielle Hunter's great. I understand. He's amazing. He's still a top 7 defensive end in all of football. Woody also is a very injury-prone player. Injury-prone player, meaning he gets injured just about every year for the Vikings. And by every year, I mean the last couple seasons. You hate to see it. However, with our defense, what the Vikings can do very well is develop defensive linemen. If Danielle Hunter requests a trade, you should respect that and trade him away. You don't have to hold him hostage on your team because, in all honesty, why should he want to play with a team that will likely not compete next year anyways? I'm totally fine with a player like him demanding money. His contract very okay. It's an all right contract. If the Vikings do trade away Danielle Hunter before June 1st, it would save him $14.6 million of salary. Wow, that is a lot of money. That would be very helpful for our salary cap, and we could bring in some more young talent on our team. If the Vikings trade him away after June 1st, it would save us $20 million of salary. $20 million for Danielle Hunter, an injury-prone player. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with trading away Danielle Hunter. I'm okay with keeping Danielle Hunter. Either decision that Kwesi makes is totally fine. What he has to do, though, is focus on this salary cap because the Vikings, after you bring in your head coach, that needs to be your focus right now. You need to focus on how you're going to deal with, what is it, negative $13 million of salary. One move that the Vikings can make a salary cap cut would be trading away Danielle Hunter. I'm looking at my phone to see if the Vikings are going to sign any head coaches, which they haven't so far. For another option, and this is one people now we're starting to mention, is either trading or cutting Michael Pierce. Just like Danielle Hunter, Michael Pierce continues to miss games. Michael Pierce and Danielle Hunter missed all of the 2020 season and a lot of the 2021 season on top of that. Both players on our defensive line who had backups who stepped into the role and looked perfectly fine. DJ Wanham looked great as a defensive end who stepped in for Danielle Hunter, and then obviously Everson Griffin went down, so then you had that issue as well. But with Michael Pierce, he went out with the injury. Armond Watts stepped in. Armond Watts didn't look as good as Michael Pierce. He looked better than Michael Pierce. Armond Watts looked amazing this last season and was one of the few bright spots on this Vikings defense that you could say, wow, I'm glad I have that guy, because Armond Watts is on his rookie contract and had 5 sacks this last season on his rookie contract and forced a fumble and had above 60 PFF grade coming out of the 6th round. Definitely a bright spot on our Vikings defense is Armond Watts and could step in for Michael Pierce. Whether the Vikings cut or trade Michael Pierce this offseason, it will save them $6.5 million of cap space and $8.5 if they do it after June 1st. So either way, not going to be very crucial against the cap, but is another player who, he's not an overpaid player. He's just a player that you don't have to pay that much to, if that makes any sense. You really don't when you have a player like Armond Watts, who looked very, very good as a nose tackle, and actually alongside Dalvin Tomlinson. If I were Andre Patterson, now in Andre Patterson we trust. Okay, Andre Patterson, like take my opinion with a grain of salt compared to Andre Patterson, who was a defensive mastermind. Okay, but if I were to do it, I would actually take Armond Watts, throw him at the 3 tech, because that man is an interior pass rusher on top of a run stopper, and then just put Dalvin Tomlinson as the nose tackle. Because Tomlinson has played nose with the New York Giants and was a great run stopper with their team and could stop the run up the middle very well and would be crucial in our defense. I would just take Armond Watts, throw him at the 3 tech. Don't even bother putting him out as a nose tackle because he might look great there. Dalvin Tomlinson would look better, and he can rush the passer at the 3 tech as well. That's what I would do if I was Andre Patterson. Another salary cap that the Vikings have to make. This is one that I've talked about many times, and one that now that the Vikings are bringing in a new head coach, now that the Vikings are bringing in a new GM, looks more and more possible. And that is what the Vikings are going to do with Kirk Cousins. This is the question. Okay? Because the Vikings, obviously, right now we're looking to a head coach. After that, what are you going to do with the quarterback position? Because just about the more this offseason progresses, I guess it's not technically offseason, the more this postseason progresses, the more it looks like every scenario is possible for the Vikings. Because as of right now, January 31st, Aaron Rodgers is looking more likely than not that he leaves Green Bay. More likely than not. Same goes for Davante Adams. To the point where Aaron Rodgers, him leaving Green Bay and keeping Kirk in Minnesota, we could run with our division next year. Which is why keeping Kirk for another year is understandable, and that's an understandable move. What's also understandable is maybe extending him a couple years. Now, I would hate this decision. Me personally, my personal opinion, I hate the decision. However, I can see it as well, why Kwesi would think that's a good idea. And then my favorite is obviously trading away Kirk Cousins. I've made that very clear in the podcast. Trading away Kirk Cousins would save us $35 million of salary cap. That's $35 million that we can move to younger players in free agencies, like Harold Landry, like bringing back Tyler Conklin, maybe bringing back Xavier Woods. You can bring in Carlton Davis as well with that money, or Gabriel, or the what's the guy's name? Right guard for the Bears. It's slipping my name right now. James Daniels. You can bring in multiple names for our team that could be crucial on our offense. Young guys that are undervalued, and that's where the Vikings' money has to go, in my opinion. Where the Vikings' money should go is in undervalued young guys. Because here's the thing, Vikings fans, we have so much money going to Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, and Harrison Smith, to the point where these restructuring contracts, I'm completely tired of it. I am so over restructuring contracts because it's every year, we go into this offseason in the same situation, Vikings fans. That situation is coming off of a season where we missed the playoffs and where we're saying, let's just reload and do better next year. Why are we in the same situation we were the last few off seasons, where we missed the playoffs and say, oh, let's just bring in someone else. Let's just restructure his contract so then we can compete next year. Why are we making the same mistake, Vikings fans? Because this is the same thing we did the last few seasons. Oh, but this time I see we don't have Mike Zimmer. Oh, but this time we have a different coaching staff. All the more reason why you should look to the future for this team. All the more reason why you should look to a rebuild. When I say rebuild, I don't mean selling all of your players. When I say rebuild, I'm talking about filling those positions with young guys in free agency and in the draft. Those positions are quarterback, outside linebacker, corner, safety, the list goes on. Interior offensive lineman as well. Defensive end. There are multiple positions that the Vikings have to fill with young, undervalued talent in free agency and the draft. That's how you can rebuild a team, and it also is trading players away like Harrison Smith, trading players away like Kirk Cousins, maybe Adam Thielen. In all honesty, we don't know what Kwesi is going to do. If it was Spielman, I would say none of those players are getting traded away. However, Kwesi can completely come into this team and rechange it, and I'm all in for that. Vikings 2022, this is going to be the most interesting 3 months for the Vikings in maybe Vikings history. Because in all honesty, I have never been in a situation like this with the Vikings where I see so many mixed emotion among Vikings fans. Because it feels like every year we can agree, oh, this is the right decision to make, this is the wrong decision to make, or a majority of Vikings fan can. Now there are so many possibilities where it is split right down the middle. There are Vikings fans still who think $45 million for Kirk Cousins in 2022 is good because we can win the Super Bowl. Are we forgetting we were in the same situation the last 3 seasons? There are Vikings fans who think extending Kirk Cousins is a great idea. Fine, there are Vikings fans who think trading him away is a good idea. It is completely split right down the middle to where there are multiple different sides, and I'm all in for it. Because in all honesty, at the end of the day, there's only a few opinions that matter. And those are all in the front office. What is the Will family, Kwesi, head coach, what are these guys who run this Vikings team going, what is their opinion? What do they think would benefit this team? Do they think reloading, completely bringing in new star players in your team and reloading your offense and defense is going to work in 2022? Maybe. Or do they think going for a rebuild and finding undervalued young guys will benefit our team for the next decade? We're going to have to wait and see, but it's going to be so interesting to watch unfold. Joey Pasek says there are actually 5 teams without a head coach right now: Vikings, Dolphins, Texans, Saints, and Jaguars. That's right, the Saints. I forgot. I forgot the Saints are out of are gone. Or Sean Payton's gone now. I completely forgot about that. Earlier in the show, I said it was Vikings and Jaguars. I thought, but I mentioned that I thought it wasn't a lock. I said I think it's going to be. Dizzy says Smith-Marset looks really good. He does. One thing about Amir Smith-Marset is I watched him play in college because I watch a lot of Big Ten football. I watched him play in college, and that man plays with outstanding confidence. I mean, he's a splashy player. He goes out there and makes the big time plays. He's a splashy player, but his confidence is above the roof. He is confident in what he's able to do, and I love to see that because that is crucial when the lights are on, when it's prime time, when it's playoff time. That's the kind of player you want to have. That's the kind of player. Same goes for Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen for that matter. Just about every wide receiver we have right now, except for maybe Chad Beebe, plays for, well, he's not technically with the team anymore. He's set to hit free agency. Play with outstanding confidence. Dizzy also says Darisaw, Cleveland, Linderbaum, Onwangu, O'Neal, Madison, Kane, JJ Smith Jr., rookie quarterback. Okay, I like that. Thank you. Because it's actually very rare that I see people agree with me, because here's the thing with the Vikings. I don't believe that Garrett Bradbury should be our starting center next year. However, I do believe he will be. On top of that, I think our offensive line is going to look the same. We're going to have Darisaw, Cleveland, Bradbury. Actually, I don't know who's going to start at right guard. Right guard's toss up in the air, and then O'Neal at right tackle. I think it's going to look the same. But when it comes to our skilled position players, might be completely different. I believe all fully that Dalvin Cook is going to be our running back next year. And that's because at this time, trading away Dalvin Cook, like, what are you going to get for him? A 4th round draft pick, 5th round draft pick? I mean, you're not going to get a whole lot. He's worth a lot of money, and you're still going to be very, very, very deep against the cap. I mean, even if you trade away Dalvin Cook, that saves you, what, $3 million of salary cap? Because he's still worth a lot of guaranteed money from your team. So I don't think that the Vikings will get rid of Dalvin Cook. I do think they should. I don't think it's going to happen. And when it comes to wide receivers, still, I don't believe the Vikings are going to get rid of Adam Thielen. However, I want it to happen. And in all honesty, we have no clue, like I said, because we have no idea what Adolfo Mensa's plans are for this team, because we know what his goals are. Obviously, we know his goals are to... He talked about the roster. He talked about the moves that you have to make he talked about what a Super Bowl team looks like. That's what I'm trying to say here. He talked about what a Super Bowl team looks like. He didn't talk about how he's going to make the Vikings look like a Super Bowl team. That's why I have absolutely no clue here. Keep looking to see. Okay, Dolphins. Saints interview Brian Flores tomorrow. Lions are interviewing someone for defensive coordinator. So no news from the Vikings so far. No news from Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter. Blazing Wood says, okay, talking quarterback, what about Carson Strong from Nevada? So here's the thing with the Vikings. At this point, right now, we have so many holes to fill on our team, to the point where we don't want to get stuck taking a quarterback in the first round again. All right, you guys, unless if it's Pickett. Okay, anybody else, I don't want to talk about taking a quarterback in the first round, because here's the facts. You look at where the Vikings are picking. They're picking at 12. There is going to be someone available at 12 who can help us day one on defense, whether that's going to be an outside linebacker, defensive end, cornerback, even safety. I mean, there's a lot of positions where the Vikings, or even wide receiver. Okay, let's not forget the fact that taking a wide receiver in the first round seems to always work for the Vikings. Outside of maybe Laquan Treadwell and whoever we took in the early 2010s, we've taken some excellent, talented wide receivers before. And also in the 5th round, just about every round, not just first round. We have had a lot of talented wide receivers come through this team, where maybe you can get Chris Olave at 12. I don't want to completely focus on quarterback here, because here's the facts. If Pickett is not available and you're just stuck taking someone else at 12, there's a very, very, very high chance that you're going to miss. The same way we did with Ponder, and the same way we did with Bridgewater. Now, Bridgewater was 32nd overall, so I guess that was technically an okay pick. But the same way we did in the past with quarterbacks. You just don't want to overdraft. You don't want to get scared and take a quarterback in the first round, unless if they fall to you, or unless if you trade up, obviously. That's the thing with the Vikings. I really don't want to take a quarterback in the first round unless if it's Pickett. Second round, I'm fine. Second round, if Carson's strong, Yeah, Carson Strong might fall to the second round. I'm fine with that. First round, I'm looking at defensive players here. Or really just anybody. Anybody. Because here's the thing, Vikings. At the end of the day, free agency is for filling your needs. Free agency is for filling what held you the most back last year. The draft is for value. That is my wholeheartedly strong opinion. You just take whoever is the best player available in the draft, and that's how you build the best team. You don't just take players based off of position. You always have people who are like, oh, the Vikings don't need to take a wide receiver in the first round. If you can get a very talented wide receiver in the first round at 12, you can make him work. You can. Even though the Vikings have maybe top 3. We might have the best wide receiver tandem right now. Vikings have one of the best, if not the best wide receiver tandems right now. I still like the idea of taking a wide receiver in the first round. I mean, why not? Why not? It's one of the most valuable positions. Continue to load up on receivers. That way you can trade away Thielen. You don't have to look to bringing B.C. Johnson back on another contract. And you can have, maybe KJ Osborne doesn't look good next year. You have a backup plan if you take a receiver in the first round. And that's why we're going to look more into first round draft picks for the Vikings. But as of right now, it's hard because our focus can't just be on the first round for the Vikings right now because there are so many big, crucial needs for our team to the point where the draft, I can't even say the the Minnesota Vikings organization is focused on the draft right now. Outside of the scouting reporters or the scouting team for the Vikings, I really don't think anybody else is focused on the draft because they are all focused on who's going to be our head coach. What are we going to do with the negative $12 million of salary cap? Who are we going to bring in free agency? That's the focus for the Vikings team right now to the point where I don't know all that, that Kwesi is really focusing on the draft. I don't know. Dizzy says, I'm all in for Harrison Smith for Mike Wong. Okay, obviously I'd be totally down with that as well. 100%. Just don't think it's going to happen. I really highly doubt that the Patriots would trade away someone on the rookie contract. Unless if they're going to get a bunch from them. I just don't think it's going to happen. I actually thought the Patriots were going to trade away J.C. Jackson and get like a first rounder for him before the end of the season just because it's the Patriots. Smith for Nwanu and a fourth. I don't think it's going to happen, man. I don't think it's going to happen. Get ready for some big news this afternoon. Absolutely. I'm still waiting. I know that it's very unlikely that the Vikings would sign a head coach while I'm live, especially when it's 9:52 in the morning. But I'm completely continuing to look, seeing maybe it's going to happen. Maybe it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. By the time this episode does get posted on Spotify and the uploads on YouTube, though, we might have a new head coach by then. We might. I'm so excited for it. Let me know who you guys think. It's brought down to the 4 final contestants for head coach. I really don't think it's going to be Harbaugh. I know a lot of Vikings fans, a majority of Vikings fans says it's going to be. I really don't think so. So let's take a look at the poll that I posted this morning. I posted, out of the 4 final Vikings head coach candidates, who do you place your bet on? I said. So I guess I didn't say who do you want. I said, who do you place your bet on? And it was Jim Harbaugh, DeMeco Ryans, Kevin O'Connell, and Raheem Morris. And the top one is Harbaugh. 45% of people say that Harbaugh is going to be the next. DeMeco Ryans has 28, Kevin O'Connell 17, Raheem Morris 9. Raheem Morris only 9. Wow. I didn't think of that. I didn't think there was that many Raheem Morris haters out there. I get it. It's a safe pick, but it's also like, Raheem Morris is not going to be the next big name in head coaches. He'll likely never win a head coach or a coach of the year candidate, but you still know the same way with Jim Harbaugh where it could be useful. I like that Kevin O'Connell is getting respect at 17. I think Kevin O'Connell's so underrated as a head coach. That man, it would be a monster to be our head coach. I would love to see that happen. Yeah. So, yes, Blazing Wood said, okay, what I'm hearing is Jim could be the head coach today. Yes, he could. But we've also been saying the same thing the last couple days. We have. And maybe it's just because Kwesi's coming in and he wants to interview, rightfully so. He wants to interview a lot of the people himself that the Vikings already interviewed. And yeah, like I said, rightfully so, he should. Because he needs to have say in who's going to be our next head coach, because that head coach to GM relationship is very important. And same goes for the quarterback. You could throw him in there as well. Very important, but I would like to not see Jim Harbaugh as our head coach, going to be completely honest. I think I can speak on behalf of a lot of Vikings fans when I say Harbaugh, yes, he's going to work. He's going to be an okay head coach. I want more than just an okay head coach. I want a head coach who's going to win head coach of the year for our team. I would love to see that happen. Ryan Sign says Kevin O'Connell. Thank you. I love Kevin O'Connell. He's my favorite pick so far for the Vikings to be the next head coach. And like I said, take my opinion with a grain of salt. I'm just a guy talking on YouTube. I trust Kwesi's opinion at the end of the day. But if I'm going to be completely honest, who looks best for our team? Who has the best track record? Kevin O'Connell. Fire Niece says, I really like Wyatt Davis. And in all honesty, I did too. Because here's the thing with Wyatt Davis. He was the best right guard coming out of college. Why did he not play in 2021? Because Mike Zimmer was our head coach. And Mike Zimmer is a brainwashed head coach who plays football like it's 1980. He plays players based off of who has the most experience. He doesn't play players based off of who's the better player. He doesn't play you based off of performance. He plays you based off of experience, which is why we saw Oli Udoh starting a majority of our team. Yes, Oli, Mr. I get 10 penalties a game, Udoh, was starting at right guard for a majority of the season. Meanwhile, we had Wyatt Davis, who was completely healthy on our team and was the top-ranked PFF right guard coming out of college that we were able to get in the third round. We bring him into our team, and what does he do? He spends the whole season on the bench watching Oli Udoh out there looking like a penalty machine. I hated that. That pissed me off. And that is maybe the most annoying thing with Mike Zimmer, and why I'm so happy that he's gone, is because that man, some of the decisions that he made blew me away. And then you look at his press conferences. After the press conferences, Mike Zimmer would say, he'd get asked about a question like that. Mike Zimmer would say some bullshit. Like he'd say, well, you guys don't understand football. I've been in this for a long time. I'm 65 years old. I understand football. We understand, Mike Zimmer. We know you understand football more than us. But we're trying to figure out why it doesn't take a mastermind to realize playing Oli Udoh over Wyatt Davis is an idiotic, stupid move. And that's why I hated that. That made me so mad. Oh, no. Thank you. Wyatt Davis does need to start. And even if Wyatt Davis doesn't start next year, we need to see what he's able to do, at least bare minimum. If you're not going to start Wyatt Davis, let him get some offensive snaps. Let him get some playtime. Because if there's one thing I learned about Oli Udoh in 2021, there's a lot of right guards who can look better than him. He set the bar very low at right guard. Yes, he was an increase from Pat Elflein or an increase from previous right guards. Even Drew Samia, he was best right guard of the last 3 seasons for the Vikings. But one thing I do know, he set the bar here. Wyatt Davis, at the bare minimum, is going to look as good as Oli Udoh. Yes. So Segundo says, Udoh was a tackle his whole life. Why make the guy change position in one offseason? Just try Davis out. Yes. So Oli Udoh, the decision of moving him to right guard, I was fine with, because here's the thing. Oli Udoh was a massive guy. At the end of the day, even though he played right guard or tackle for a majority of his career, and the reason why he played tackle, I'm going to throw this out there. The reason why Oli Udoh played tackle as long as he did is because simply that's the most important position on the offensive line is left tackle. And that's why he's played left tackle and right tackle throughout college, is because he was the best player on their offensive line. Now coming into the Minnesota Vikings is arguably the worst player on our offensive line right now, which is why playing him at right guard, that's an okay decision. I did like the decision of moving him to right guard. And you gave him an opportunity to progress throughout the season. And he didn't. He didn't. There's absolutely no way. I highly doubt that Wyatt Davis is going to look as bad or worse than Oli Udoh did. Even if Wyatt Davis ends up being a bust, which is very possible, even if he does, it's worth a shot. And that's something that I'm so happy. I am so happy Zimmer's gone, because respect to the guy. All respect to Mike Zimmer. I don't want to be a Mike Zimmer hater. He was the 3rd best Vikings head coach in history for our Vikings team. In franchise history, he was the 3rd best. It's not saying a whole lot, but he was the 3rd best. At the end of the day, I was so angry with the decisions that he made on playing players based off of experience and not based off of performance. It was ridiculous. See what he can do. Exactly. Blazing Wood says, okay, I think the new head coach will actually let him play in the preseason at least. Exactly. Or even if that, if you don't play Wyatt Davis, I'm fine with that. Just don't play Oli Udoh. All right? There's so many opportunities. Like the guy coming out of the Bears, Daniels. I keep almost saying Chase Daniels. That's the quarterback with the Bears a few years ago. But James Daniels. Perfect candidate, a very undervalued young player who can step in day one as a starter on your offensive line at right guard and can look better, a much better increase from Oli Udoh. We cannot throw Band-Aids at the position. That's another thing. With the offensive line for the Vikings, we need to stop just relying on draft picks for the offensive line. Because like I've said already, we are terrible at drafting and developing offensive linemen. Now, yes, I guess we're in a new regime. This is a new era for the Vikings. We don't know what to expect. But what I do know is Spielman, if there's one thing he couldn't do, is draft and develop offensive linemen. The only time he hit, Brian O'Neill. Everybody else didn't work. Ryan Jensen. For the center for the Bucks. All right. I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure. Can't tell you how Ryan Jensen would look on our team. What I do know, though, we need to find someone who can at least... No, Mason Cole's fine. Mason Cole is a fine center. From the Bucks. Oh. Did I get that wrong? Tampa Bay Bucks. Unrestricted free agent from the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have no clue. No clue. But yeah, Mason Cole is a fine backup center. At least he proved himself to at least win a backup role with our team in 2022. But here's the thing. Next head coach for the Vikings. I don't care that Garrett Bradbury was a first-round draft pick. I really don't. Just him being a first-round draft pick does not mean that he has to start with your team. I don't care if they're drafted in the first round or seventh round. Draft whoever looks the best in preseason and team OTAs and training camp. And whatever you do before the season, whoever looks the best wins the starting role. Whether that's Garrett Bradbury, Mason Cole, or some unrestricted or undrafted free agent that you bring in, I don't care. I want someone who can at least come out there and not get owned by every interior defensive lineman. Garrett Bradbury was smaller than the entire Gophers offensive line, and that's saying something. Okay, I understand. He was amazing, and he made that one great play where he had a 20-some immaculate reception for 20-some yards. At the end of the day, he's an undersized guy, and he showed himself that size is everything when you're an offensive lineman, especially an interior offensive lineman. Size is absolutely everything, and yes, he looked great in college, but we have to accept the fact that he is a bust. Segunda Cesar, what do you think about drafting Derek Stingley? I don't think there's any chance the Vikings can get Stingley. I don't want the Vikings to trade up. See, that's the thing. If the Vikings trade up, it has to be for Pickett. At the end of the day, cornerback, you have no clue. Cornerback is such a question mark, and the Vikings can find a corner at 7 or at 12. And Stingley likely won't be available. Someone else will be available. Someone else will be available at 12, but that would be great to bring in another LSU boy. We have a lot of LSU teams, LSU players on our team. Not like the Bengals, though. That is the Louisiana State Bengals at this point. That team is unstoppable. The Bengals. Here's what I want the Vikings to do. Exactly what the Bengals did. What did the Bengals realize? They realized that they weren't a win-now team, so they loaded up on young guys. They traded away players and looked at very young players. Now, I understand we don't have a first overall draft pick. It's a completely different story. However, at the end of the day, we need to load up on young talent because young talent sets you up for the future. And that's what the Vikings need because the Bengals, as of right now, pretty much their entire team seems to be on the rookie contract. And for the next decade, they're going to dominate their division. They will. Because that AFC South or AFC North, I mean to say, that AFC North doesn't look all that tough. I mean, Lamar Jackson, his team seem to be figuring Lamar Jackson out. Baker Mayfield looks awful. Ben Roethlisberger just retired. It feels like finally the Bengals get their turn to actually win their division and continue to ride this out because it's not only just Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, it's multiple names on that team that are T. Higgins, second year. Even Evan McPherson, the rookie kicker. Still, I mean, I'm still not a fan of drafting kickers. I'm still not a fan. I understand it worked for them. I'm not a fan of drafting kickers, but it worked for them. So I can see where people are coming from. I can see. I still don't want the Vikings to draft a kicker. I still don't want it to happen. I don't like when we draft kickers. I just want to play. I just want to pick up whoever was an undrafted player. Let them all play for the job. Whoever looks the best under pressure, that's who you want to play. Ahmad Gardner. Great. Yes, please. Literally any corner. Any corner the Vikings can find at 12. That's another thing. Corners. What's something when you're rebuilding a team? What's a position where the rookie year, they don't look all that great, but they tend to hit stride year 2, year 3? Cornerback. And quarterback. Quarter. Okay? If you bring in a corner or quarterback, your team can be set in a couple years because Typically in the first year, they have to adjust to the NFL, and especially if you're a quarterback, you have to a lot more understand your playbook because you're going from college to the NFL. Playbook is completely different. Play style is a completely different story. Defenses play with a lot more agility and speed, so it's a lot more fast pace of a game for a quarterback. And then corner, you're obviously going up against great receivers, especially if Devontae Adams stays in our division. That corner will have a workload for him to do for our team. I'd be fine with the Vikings drafting a corner, especially in the first round for our team, because that's something that could set us up for the future. Someone to look at right now, AJ Terrell. AJ Terrell might be the most underrated corner in football history. That man is a monster and deserved to make a Pro Bowl over Trevon Diggs. Wow, Terrell is a beast. I can't believe that man did not make a Pro Bowl. I believe he might have been a first, second team All-Pro, somewhere around there as well, and somehow didn't make a Pro Bowl. That's someone who the Falcons set themselves up in the future just by drafting him. Taking corners, I love it. Because you don't see corners look great the rookie season. You see them hit stride year 2, year 3. Same goes for quarterback. Ahmad Gardner, love the pick. Darren Stingley, obviously love the pick more, but I really highly doubt that's going to happen. Should we look to... Okay. Fire Nice says, if we trade Kirk to a team for a first, should we look to take a pick on each side? Yes, I would like it. Because, well, it's tough. See, if the Vikings trade Kirk away, they can get a first round pick. Anybody who, okay, here's the thing. Kirk is excellent. He's a very good quarterback. But the thing is, quarterbacks is like the only position where you can get a first round draft pick for him because of how many teams are desperate for a quarterback right now. The Denver Broncos are a quarterback away from competing. Pittsburgh Steelers, quarterback away from competing. Cleveland Browns, quarterback away from competing. Oh, what about the Carolina Panthers? Carolina Panthers, if they get a quarterback, they can compete as well, especially if they bring Hassan Reddick back, who's a beast on their defense. There's a lot of teams who are a quarterback away from competing to make a Super Bowl run, who will give up a first-round draft pick for Kirk Cousins, especially if Carson Wentz was worth a first-round draft pick. If Carson Wentz is worth a first-round draft pick, Kirk is at least worth a first-round draft pick, which is why, yes, if we do trade Kirk away, we can find some value in that late first round. You can find a wide receiver in the late first round, 12. I would love to go defense at 12. At the end of the day, value. Just take whoever's the best player available at the end of the day. You can also combine both those picks, trade up, and try to get Pickett. Pickett is the only player I want to look at quarterback drafting in the first round. Everybody else seems to be a little bit of an overvalue. Or overdraft pick, I meant to say. Patrick Peterson, cause someone needs help. Oh, Patrick Peterson. Yeah, so we don't know if Patrick Peterson's going to be back, but if he does want to come back, he should. Segunda Cesar says, Kirk just made a Pro Bowl. Maybe his value will go up in a bit. Yes, I'm so happy. I'm so happy Kirk made a Pro Bowl because he's coming off of a career year. And typically when quarterbacks come off of a career year, you throw a franchise tag on them. You extend their contract. You give them a big opportunity to be your franchise guy for the next few seasons. Kirk is in a completely different scenario where he's coming off of a career year and you can trade him away for a lot. Okay, hear me out. Vikings can trade away Kirk, get a first-round draft pick. Would you rather pay a quarterback $45 million in 2022 when you're likely going to be a round 500 team once again, or trade away Kirk Cousins for a first-round draft pick so you can compete for the next decade? Play that in slow motion 10 times. I need everybody who thinks Kirk is worth $45 million to hear that out. Because first-round draft pick is so much more valuable for a team than a quarterback who's been a 500 quarterback throughout his entire career, not even just with the Vikings, throughout his entire career, has been a 500 quarterback, especially the last 4 seasons with the Vikings, where he has been in the playoffs one time. Not only has he been in the playoffs one time, but he has 0 division titles. I highly can doubt that the Vikings can compete in 2022 with or without Kirk Cousins. We can win our division. With or without Kirk Cousins, we cannot make a Super Bowl. Going to be completely honest. I want to be optimistic. See, and this is my thing. I listen to a lot of podcasts. A lot of Vikings fans are way too optimistic. And that's why I love Score North, because they seem to be a lot more realistic. So many people are way too optimistic to the point where I cannot handle it anymore because they're starting to get at my brain, telling me that the Vikings can win a Super Bowl next year. I hear the same thing every year. Every year, we're in the same scenario. We are in the same exact scenario. It's been 20 years. It's been 20 years. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Self-taught infection. Yes, I would take a first-round draft pick over Kirk Cousins. 100%. 100%. especially when you can combine the both. Either you can combine them, trade up for Pickett. You can stay at the first round draft pick. I'm fine with any scenario, but I would take a first round draft pick over paying a quarterback $45 million. I would take it any day. Any day. Morgan says our offense is hurt by no O-line and will always hurt us. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you look at Super Bowl teams. What do a lot of Super Bowl teams have in common? Now, actually, the two right now is not a good example, especially the Bengals. But a lot of Super Bowl teams, what they have in common is that they load up in the trenches. See, there's two games going on when you have football. There's the game that we're all watching, and there's the game in the trenches. That's, if you load up in the trenches, you can sneak your way into a Super Bowl. You can sneak your way into the playoffs. Now, I know the Bengals are not a good example right now, but typically how it works, if you load up in the trenches, you can easily make it to the playoffs. Look at the Patriots, for example. Patriots are a perfect example. I know they got humiliated by the Bills in the playoffs, but they made it to the playoffs with a very, very, very average roster. Just want to put that out there. How Kirk is going to get paid. Blazing Woods asks, how much is Kirk getting paid again? $45 million of guaranteed money. And this is what I've talked about. Vikings, we have to stop restructuring contracts. It feels like every year we are in the same scenario where I talked about this already earlier, but I say where we're in the same scenario where Vikings fans are like, oh, let's just restructure his contract. Let's restructure this contract. Let's extend this contract. We can win next year. We can go for a Super Bowl next year. We're going to make a Super Bowl. Easy. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers out of the division. We're going to make a Super Bowl if we just restructure these contracts, reload on our team. No! Stop restructuring contracts. We've been in the same situation year after year after year after year. When you restructure a contract, all you're doing is screwing your team over in the next few seasons. Yes, restructuring contracts does make sense sometimes. I understand, especially the Rams. Rams are in a win now team. They're in a Super Bowl or bust team, which is why them making the Super Bowl was huge for Sean McVay's job. Them making the Super Bowl was big because they are a win now Super Bowl or bust team. Vikings are not in the same scenario. They are not. We can take control of this division. We can. But what we want is to take control of this division for more than just 1 year. Stop restructuring contracts. You're screwing yourselves over, Vikings. And you look at Thielen and Kirk's contract right now. You look at Adam Thielen's contract and Harrison Smith contract. No, it is not worth it. And if you trade Kirk away, you save yourself $35 million of cap space, Vikings fans. 35. Yeah. Morgan says, if you want to be realistic, then you need to get on the trade Thielen train. So here's my thing with trading away Thielen. Thielen is obviously worth trading away. He's over 30 years old. But by the time the Vikings are competing, I'm going to be completely honest, we're not going to compete for a Super Bowl next year. As of right now, we look like we're not going to compete for a Super Bowl next year. Remember, Aaron Rodgers is still with Green Bay as of right now. He is still with Green Bay as of right now. You trade away Adam Thielen, your receiving core is going to be fine. You have Justin Jefferson and KJ Osborne both going into year 3 on the rookie contracts, going to look amazing, especially because they're playing for that career year. This is going to be them playing for an extension. Would be big for our offense. On top of that, you have Amir Smith-Marset going into his second year, BC Johnson going into his final year. I mean, you have multiple players on the rookie contract that are going to fill in fine at wide receiver, and you don't need to bring Adam Thielen back. He is the best receiver over the age of 30, and you can find value for him. You can definitely find value for him. Yeah, Rams, exactly. Self-taught infection says Rams are a good example of this for their D-line. Yep, they are. The Bengals are a terrible example, but Rams definitely. But Rams, same thing with the Rams, where they have so many holes. They paid a lot of their money to the same few players. They have a lot of holes on that team. Which is why them making the Super Bowl, I'm honestly surprised they made the Super Bowl. I didn't pick them to make the Super Bowl, and I feel like a majority of NFL fans didn't expect the Rams to be there because they do have a lot of holes on their team, and you can definitely expose the Rams like we've seen all season long. But still, definitely Sean McVay loves this because he locked down his job. It's Super Bowl or bust year for them, and they made a Super Bowl. Congratulations to the Rams. I'm not happy because I wanted to bring Kevin O'Connell as our head coach. They are interviewing him. Probably as we speak right now, they're interviewing Kevin O'Connell, but we'll see. Morgan says, Thielen, Kirk, Hunter, and Cook need to be traded, but Hunter and Cook won't because of the new contracts. I agree. Although Hunter could get traded. Kirk, yes, trade him away. If you can get a first-round draft pick for Kirk Cousins, I honestly still to this day cannot figure out why people don't want that. But if you can get a first-round draft pick for Kirk Cousins, 100% take it. Adam Thielen, you're probably not going to get a whole lot for Adam Thielen. Fourth-round draft pick somewhere around there. Maybe a draft day trade for Adam Thielen. Package him up with maybe a sixth-rounder trade into the second round, something like that. I'm fine with. That's another solution because the Vikings are fine without Thielen. We are totally set, and this last season completely proved that. For Dalvin Cook, I would like to see Dalvin Cook traded just because it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen with Dalvin Cook. It really won't. He sells so many jerseys for our team. He's such a loved player for our team. It's not going to happen that the Vikings trade away Dalvin Cook. We're going to throw that out of the picture. That's why I haven't talked about it. I just don't think it's going to happen. As for Danielle Hunter, if he requests a trade, you should respect that and trade him away. You're not going to trade you're not going to trade Dalvin Cook, though. It's not going to happen. Morgan says, if we keep everyone, we are a contender. So we can win our division easily. We can, especially if Rodgers, Devontae Adams are out. We can win our division. But you look at it. We've been saying the same thing for every single year, the Vikings fans. Every year we talk about the Vikings being able to compete. And a first-year head coach, you don't typically see first-year head coaches go into the Super Bowl. It rarely happens. And I mean rarely. Who was the last time a first-year head coach brought his team to the Super Bowl? Typically, when you bring in a new head coach and GM, you're looking for a minor rebuild. I understand the Vikings aren't in a full rebuild. You're looking for a minor rebuild, to say the least. To say the least. I don't want to get my hopes up, and I don't want to get you guys' hopes up. I really don't. I really don't want to get anybody's hopes up here. Vikings can win their division. Can they compete for a Super Bowl is a completely different story. It's a completely different story. And these next few months, like I've said, are going to be so interesting to watch unfold. So tune into the show, tune into the podcast, subscribe, hit that notification bell, or subscribe and leave a rate to the podcast if you're listening to the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere, or Google. If you're listening to the show, be sure to, because we have a lot to talk about. And these live streams have been hours long. Why? Because there's so much to talk about for this Vikings team. This is going to be the most interesting 2-month stretch for the Vikings in Vikings franchise history. We have a lot to talk about here, and I'm all in for it. We are all in for it, and I hope you guys continue to tune into the show because we have so much to unfold for this Vikings team, and that starts with the head coaching position. Please, Kevin O'Connell, I would love to see him come in. Whoever comes in, though, in Kwesi, we trust. And for that, that's going to wrap up this episode of Morning Kickoff. I hope you all did enjoy listening to this episode. If you did, be sure to rate and subscribe to the podcast for more Minnesota Vikings football-related content. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of Morning Kickoff. Have a great day.